Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday from a sunny and warm and melting Ireland, UK. UK, and Charlie's okay there. Charlie's is fine. But us here in UK in Ireland, we are melting here. Yeah. And as you know, we have our special guest, Umberto. He was with us, I would say, 2 months ago, more
About
or
two
less.
months.
About 2 months and
Yeah,
a
two
half
months
ago.
ago.
May, yeah.
And today he's here because the book is launched. We have a Bemos book, and and he is here to tell us more about this book. And I'm glad, Umberto, you have had time to be with us today. Thank you very much.
Well,
And
I'm super happy. Thank you.
And I would like to start our introduction today with you, please.
Yeah, I'm especially happy for speaking again from the UK. And again, I was very well received by Elsa Rossi and Elizabeth Stevenson. So I always had this very warm welcome from the British Spiritist community, which is just great. It makes me feel really very welcome and among friends. Well, the book was launched after some delay from the publisher, but it is now widely available, multi-platform, and I hope it fulfills its purpose, which is to bring the main subject of
Yes,
afterlife
yes.
research to the general public.
We will share the link here and everything. Yes, yeah. Thank you, my friends. So let's talk with these two ladies melting as well in UK. So Miss Gibbons, while Elsa refresh herself, let's let's get your greetings.
Greetings. Hello. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. The week seems to roll by so fast now. And today is a very special topic, something to see in a scientific way and to clear a lot of confusion. And it's a matter that's very important. So it's wonderful to have Humberto with us and to see everyone else and Charles and Stevan and everyone well. We are coping here with the heat that we are not used to. There has never been so hot in this country before, never ever. And it's quite difficult, especially for the elderly people. So, people who have friends and everything, keep in touch, make sure that everyone is well. And, once again, God bless us all and have that today not only we will learn something, but also something that can guide our lives. Boa noite, boa tarde a todos. Prazer em estar com vocês uma vez mais. Amém. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Elsa Rossi, how are you, my dear?
I am always fine. Thanks God for that. Each day is a lesson, is a blessing, and we can survive in this hot weather, so we can do everything. So thank you all for coming to our beautiful room. That we have a special guest, Humberto, again with us. And now talking about the science of life after death, but with the book already launched, as he explained it before. So it's really good to have Humberto to reflect in all what he will say for us, and most important, to read the book. The book is an encyclopedia of science after death. So it's wonderful time to read in an ebook, in a shadows under the trees, or take your drinking water, frozen water, so we can really escape from this hot weather reading and enjoying our time. So welcome you all. Welcome our dear Charles, dear Silvia, dear Stevan, dear Humberto, dear you. You are in our hearts. Thank you for being with us. There's a lot of people here. Stevan can say the names before, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, you say. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir
Allez-vous?
Steven. Très bien, merci. Et vous-même, bonsoir à tous. Très heureux d'être là de nouveau parmi vous ce soir et puis très, très impatient d'écouter notre frère Umberto parler de ce livre de la science de la vie après la mort qui doit quand même donner un petit coup de pouce dans ce changement de paradigme tant attendu, hein, du paradigme matérialiste vers le paradigme spiritualiste, en espérant que cette fois, ce sera la bonne. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here again with you and eager to listen to our friend Umberto Schubert about his book, which hopefully will, last but not least, help to trigger this change of paradigm from the materialist paradigm to the spiritualist paradigm, because this will be the key for our world of regeneration. And talking a little bit about the climate, yes, we are not smelting so much. I was in Brazil 10 years in Northeast, so I'm used to, I don't fear so much the heat. We had also something like 40 Celsius, but now luckily some thunderstorm and some rain came, and we have only 19 right now, so we can breathe a little bit better. But this is, of course, part of the science, to show how we already abuse too much of our planet.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you. And today we already have a lot of people here. Thank God. Thank you, guys. So good evening, Munir, Elizabeth, Betinha. Good to have you here, my dear friend. Sandra Jimenez, our friend Rodrigo. Good to have you with us. Beatriz Gilles, Elsa Lee. I hope in Sweden you are getting this heat as well, my dear. So let's go with our introductory video, and then I will give the word to Humberto to tell us a little bit the story of the book, how this book can help us, how this book can help the science in the research and the mystery, in quotes, after that. Okay, let me put my screen here up. There we go.
The process of dying itself is almost like one could say the process of the butterfly. You have the larvae gets into this process in which it goes going round and forms like a cocoon. In our physical body, it's more or less the same. And once this cocoon is ready, like in the butterfly, in the process of butterfly, eventually it breaks free from the cocoon and it flies. And it's exactly the same, could you say, almost a parallel process with the physical body and the breaking up of the freedom from the body into the spirit. It's almost like the flight of the butterfly. You become a spirit again, because in reality we are spirits. The life in the planet is just a passage. A true life, the one that we will live forever once we created the eternal being, is in the spiritual world. We have this passage through the earth at the moment. Maybe, as we grow and we change, we go to other planets. Eventually our planet will be consumed by a supernova, and we will go into a different planet. So we are always forever evolving, but it's the process of learning. And of course, within the spiritual world, one of the things that is very important, once we go into the spiritual world, we leave the physical body and we go into this process of dying, we will face a conscience. So whatever we've done in this life, we will have to answer for what we've done. But I think for me, one of the things that's very important in Spiritism is that God does not punish. There is no punishment aside. It's our own conscience that will call for the lessons that he needs to receive. It's not God that say you're going to, different places, hell or anything like that. It's our own conscience that will call for the lessons we have to learn. We don't have a punishment, we have lessons that we have to learn. It's like, because this life is like a school. If we work hard, we, study, we've learned, and we get our degrees and our master's degrees and our PhDs. But if we don't work so hard, it takes a bit longer. It takes time because it depends on ourselves and what we choose to do. And the lessons we have to learn is redemption for everyone. No one will be left behind in darkness. Everyone will be a being of light.
So, my dear Steve, I didn't know you have a twin sister. Well,
I do, yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Such a long time ago that was, though.
Good. Okay, Humberto, my friend, it's your time. If you could tell us about the book, mainly why the reasons you and the other co-authors decided to write the book. How do you think this is going to be a turning point for the science? Because also we have a doctor helping you to write the book, so it's I don't want to give any spoilers here. Let Humberto tell you everything. Okay, Bert, please.
Thank you, fellows, for welcoming me here. And I would like to remark that in this beautiful video we just watched, it is clear that Spiritism has a powerful female representation, which is another evidence of the progressive character of Spiritism. Well, I would like to start speaking about the book with two philosophical considerations. The first one is that when we have a conversation with people, we have many ways to approach the basic truth or the basic knowledge we are always talking about and trying to share with other people. We can communicate it dogmatically, like this is it. We have the conviction and we support or we hold ideas of the immortality of the soul, reincarnation, and so and so. For some publics, that will work quite well. And that's no problem in that sort of propaganda or this particular way of communicating the essence of Spiritism. But there's another public that will be hostile to it, that will have and will show resistance to this sort of dogmatic approach, this sort of authoritative or belief-like, religious-like approach. But this other sector of society may welcome scientific evidence and a scientific-oriented discourse. So this public deserves to be addressed in its own terms, in its own necessities and ways of thinking. And this is exactly what we try to do in the book. We try to communicate the basic knowledge that Spiritism has to share with us, but not through the means of a propaganda of any sort, and actually not mentioning spiritism, because the essence of the book is purely scientific. It is an academic book, an academical enterprise, which shows that pretty much everyone can discuss the evidence. Now, we have to move to another philosophical discussion. What is evidence? Because in this world, we have many people who consider themselves or find themselves or declare themselves to be religious, and many who don't. Basically, the religious people around the world, they will believe in survival of personalities after bodily destruction, because they were so taught and so told by churches and Buddhist priests, Hindu priests, or Muslim priests, rabbis, and so. Now, a tiny part of the population that does believe in the survival of consciousness or the soul do that because they had personal experiences and not just a cultural heritage that comes from religions, or they got convinced through the facts, through the evidence. I know a couple persons, and particularly one person, who changed his mind based on the evidence solely, and that's the great American philosopher Robert Almeida. Robert Almeida was an atheist, a materialist, who disbelieved the possibility of the survival of the soul, and he watched, if I'm not wrong, a BBC documentary on Jan Stevenson's work. He's a child psychiatrist from America too, and he published some works on children who claim to have memories of past lives. Robert Almeida, as a very bold philosopher, said, well, either this is wrong and false, and I will uncover it, this fraud, or this is the most striking and shocking news that humanity ever received. So I will confront Jan Stevenson. And then he took his car immediately and drove all the way to Jan Stevenson's house, waited for him to wake up, and basically had a very, very long conversation with him and tested all the evidence his own way. He was originally a skeptic philosopher, a specialist in skepticism, and he got convinced that, I will mark my words here, we have sufficient evidence to say that reincarnation is a fact of nature, is a process of nature. We have sufficient evidence, in the opinion, in the words of Robert Almeida. So there are people who are ready and flexible enough to change their minds in the presence of scientific evidence. Now, if we ask what would constitute this evidence, we can make a comparison or analogy with a person that comes to us, and because of a terrible accident, this person was burned or in any way he lost his face, he's disfigured. Now, what happens when this person comes to us and says, my friends, you cannot recognize me, but I am the person X. I'm Joseph, for example. Now, our recognition is based on physical identity, a face that we recognize. But in an accident, if you lose your face, you do not have physical, material identity of that person. Now, I ask you, is it possible to identify who this person is, if he really is our friend or not, or it is impossible? Now, materialists would say it is impossible because we only recognize people through material features. It can be physical or it can be neurological and so and so. But in a certain phenomena where we do not have the body of Joseph, and through a medium or through another source of evidence, like another person had a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, and had contact with this personality without his body. And through the evidence, through the phenomena, we get some knowledge about the personality, the character traits and virtues and vices, the memories, the specific knowledge, the specific talents that this person, this specific person possessed. Then we can say, well, the body is not here anymore. I cannot recognize you physically, but I can recognize your soul. I can recognize your personality. I can recognize your character, your consciousness. That's the whole point of the book. The book is a scientific discussion around the question, can we, through the evidence, recognize other personalities? Can we be sure that a child speaking about a past life was another person, was this person? And we can only say that if the child, through this evidence, through this phenomena, manifests specific features and traits that correspond only to this personality, only to this specific identity. And if not, even if we have some interesting knowledge or some interesting facts about this evidence, this cannot prove that the soul survived or that the spirit survived the destruction of the body. I would close with this first remark about the essence of the book and how exactly, through which criteria we analyzed if the evidence is strong enough to suggest the survival of the personality after bodily death or not, because we can have, and we in fact have, lots of evidence that are very interesting, but they are not enough to suggest the survival of personality.
Great, thank you, my friend. And I will start with the first question here. Please encourage our friends who are watching us. If you have any question to Humberto, please write your question in the comment box, and we can pass this to Humberto. Humberto, what has been accomplished by this research?
That's a very good question. We asked ourselves at first, our main purpose when we started writing the book was to find the one best evidence. Which is the best evidence? Is it mediumship? Is it an out-of-body experience, a near-death experience, alleged memories of past lives in very young children, where the capacity to invent, to create elaborated stories is not developed? Now, all of this evidence is very promising. They are all very promising, very interesting, very appealing. But we concluded very early in the development of the book that no single evidence would be sufficient to close the case. There is no single fact that would close the case forever and say, well, it is proved humans are immortal or they survive after bodily death. But if we have a large mass of evidence of different types, we have different types of mediumship. Through different people, we have the manifestation of intellectual features, personality, characteristics that belong to deceased people, to deceased persons. If we add to this evidence a completely new sort of phenomena, such as, for example, the out-of-body experiences and near-death experience, where people are clinically dead, their hearts are stopped, they have no brain activity, and nevertheless, they present a narrative of what happened in the states, in coma, or during clinical death, where it would be impossible to create these notions, these ideas. And we add another third source of phenomena, which is the alleged memories of past lives. It happens in therapies, in previous lives therapies, but also it happens a lot spontaneously among the world population, not biased by culture, and specifically in very young children who could not have the skill of deceit to forge a story, to make a story that is convincing and elaborate and then full of facts. If we sum the three types of phenomena, the three types of evidence together, it is quite difficult to rationally dismiss the hypothesis of survival. You know, we did not prove that survival exists, but I think we made a very strong case. We made a very, very, very strong case for the total power of these three types of experiences and evidence together. Because if there was only one type, you could have a theory that would explain it away, explain it through different causes. We do not have a better explanation for mediumship, for near-death experiences, or for memories of past lives. We have basically no alternative hypothesis to explain how these phenomena occur. And the fact that we have different phenomena that cannot be explained except by the hypothesis of the permanence of human personality, then we have to rationally conclude that the evidence is telling us that science is telling us that the personality remains after the death of the body.
Wonderful, wonderful. And let's start with Miss Gibbons, her and her twin sister.
Okay. A question, Umberto. There was just a point here. You know, there is a quotation who says, to those who believe, no explanations are necessary. And for those who do not believe, no amount of explanation will be enough. And I think this is because it's not something that we can, in a way, prove, although we can. I think this question is extremely important, your book, I think, to, for a scientific people who are curious and are open enough to accept those things. And I find sometimes talking to people who are materialist but are intelligent enough to be curious is easier to talk than someone who preconceived ideas who nothing will ever change because that's what they believed or what was said to them. So that's why, I find that your book is very important on that. In the case of Dr. Ian Stevenson, I think that his book is called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. And also we have a book in Brazil, the 30 cases that were researched and were small children, and it was proved. They researched it and they found, and Stevenson's book as well is that. And there are other books, and there are other works now, people who actually from very, especially in the South, in the Bible Belt of America, where they have very strong beliefs against reincarnation and past lives and things, but people are having babies who are growing up with terrible nightmares because they saw themselves sinking in the Titanic, and and then they went to research and then had the name of the people there, and they couldn't possibly know, having, since they were born, literally from birth, they had these terrible nightmares and things. So in a way, this kind of evidence is being much more scientific, being explained now, because they go and research it. And, like a child of 5 years old couldn't possibly, as you said, invent anything. They don't know enough to invent such stories, and all different cases. And I think, so I find it how, trying to have an intelligent question here. How can you're never going to be able to convince anyone that that's what it is, isn't it? On the other hand, science now, especially in the last 15, 20 years, has moved so far ahead that something that in the early 80s people couldn't conceive is now a reality. When you talk about the Higgs boson, that they actually found, that was a complete theory, until a few years ago, which now has been proved. Science all the time is progressing and is opening up fields, because some of the people will never accept it because they are not ready for or not prepared for. And the young people who are being born, those ideas will be just commonplace to them. So how do you manage this balance between the hardcore people who will never accept it and the ones, I don't know if I made the question too complicated.
No, it is a great question. Yeah. Well, I would just say that it happens in every scientific field. We have many people who disbelieve in COVID-19, which is a material thing killing people, and we still have people who disbelieve the existence of the disease. So to this level of denial, it is nearly impossible to change one's mind. On the other hand, you also put it well when you remark that not only radical materialists or dogmatic materialists will deny the possibility of evidence. Before they check the evidence, they will say it is not possible, it's against science, and so and so and so, which is irrational and absurd as every other form of dogmatism. But we also have religious dogmatism, and many religious people will also deny to watch the facts because the facts are already defined in scripture. The possible survival of the soul is already defined in doctrine or in the canon of that religion. So they will close the eyes for scientific approach and for evidence. Now, both attitudes are irrational because dogmatism is always irrational. To this extreme, dogmatism is always irrational. Now, what is the actual public of the book? Well, not the dogmatic denial, the deniers, but people who are open to the possibility of a rational and scientific discussion about that. Now, if one can raise better evidence against the survival of the soul, I am very excited and very open to check the evidence, to read evidence, and to discuss the power of this evidence against the evidence that we collected in favor of the survival of the soul. And we are speaking exclusively about science and what science can tell about the possibility of the survival of human personality. There's no personal opinion, no belief, no religion, no ideology involved. The ideal candidate to discuss the problem and to read the book and find the book interesting is the person who says, well, I don't know. I don't know if we can survive death, if personality survive death. What are the arguments? What is the evidence for or against the survival of personality? Now, this person with a more scientific mind will find the book very interesting, very attractive, very appealing, because it is a purely scientific discussion. Now, people who want to emphasize one form of survival based on doctrine and religious dogma, or people who want to deny before checking the evidence because of materialistic ideology and philosophies, they can hardly be reached by rational discourse. But this is not a problem. Rational discourse is not directed to dogmatic deniers.
Thank you. And can we keep going here? We have a question from Munir. Do you think that this investigation can somehow be compared to the work in foreign science?
Yes, in the sense that it is somehow speculative. So it's not a hard science in the sense that we can catch something and grasp something and tell people, here it is. This is the proof. Case solved. Let's go do something else. It is a psychological question, a moral question, an intellectual question that will lead the evidence that is available and even the possible evidence, because we can hardly imagine a physical way to collect evidence for the survival of the soul. There are some possibilities that they have been considered, of course, but the best available evidence is still subjective. So there is space for interpretation. My role in the book actually was as a philosopher, and my two colleagues are psychiatrists, and they basically treated the evidence itself. My role in the book was to remember to the public, to the readers, that to a certain extent, interpretation is also needed, because in soft science and in psychological, moral, or mental sciences, we need to be open to a certain level of interpretation. Now, what we call good evidence for survival of the soul has something to do with what is consciousness or what is human personality, and things that are not quite obvious, like a rock or fire or a specific amount of energy that can be mathematically scrutinized and described and measured.
Great, Jonathan. Thank you. Let's keep going here. My friend Charles, do you have any question to Umberto?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Umberto. You told in the answers already that open-minded persons would like the book, or let's say consider it with their open mind. On another hand, what we can see today is that most of the paradigm of our current science and even philosophy is still materialistic, since more than 2 centuries now, since positivism and all these tendencies. And when we talk about evidences in favor of the survival of the individuality or the soul after death, there have been so much investigations, this Society for Psychical Research that existed still today, but there were tens of them making investigation about materialization phenomenon with some protocols and so on. And in a certain way, we got the impression that it's turned somehow into fraud hunting. And on another hand, that the parapsychology who succeeded somehow to it was more materialistic than spiritualistic in their investigations. So the question is, still we have this big resistance. Why such a big resistance of this materialistic paradigm? Because I cannot believe that all the people who are reluctant to accept this paradigm are the opposite of open-minded or closed-minded. I don't know how to say it in English. It would be too much people, because the majority of mainstream scientifics and philosophers are all still following a materialistic paradigm. Or maybe I'm biased because in France it's a little bit more caricatural than maybe in some other countries. So what's your opinion about this? What is the biggest resistance? Because you talked about dogmatic approach, but when we listen, for instance, to Rupert Sheldrake, he's clearly saying the materialism is a dogma. So the dogmatic approach exists also somehow in science, not only in religion. So what is your opinion about this?
Exactly. Well, there is a lot of dogmatism in science. So we sometimes believe romantically that scientists cannot be dogmatic. And this happens usually with their specific field of speciality. Now, a good doctor, a physician, for example, will not be a dogmatic, and it is impossible to be a dogmatic about heart surgery and recent papers on heart surgery or medicine in general. But when we move to philosophy or to sociology or to geology, the best doctors are not quite wise and learned about the subject. The problem is that survival research is also a very specific field. And if you're not used to the terminology and this, as you said, this almost 200 years of interesting research, you have a tendency of caricaturize it and describe it in very simplistic ways. And in fact, our book shows that some very famous scientists who were very intelligent and competent, they gave the most indecent declarations regarding survival research. Some respectable scientists denied the fact and said, well, I will not check the evidence. I will not attend such a conference or a call to examine the evidence because I know it is irrational. And if I go there to check the evidence, I will be out of my mind. I will be insane or I will be irrational. So this is clearly a dogmatic position, but we quote nominally a couple great scientists that said exactly that. I do not admit it to be possible, so I will not check the evidence. Now, if the evidence is weak, we can expect that good scientists will write about it and we show that the evidence is flawed or very weak or not related to the actual survival of the personality, but related to other causes, to other certain phenomena, and so and so. And we wait for that. We invite the entire academic community to check the evidence, to check the literature, and to tell us where we are wrong. Well, what are we not seeing if there is something that we are missing? But experience has shown consistently that most of the criticism that this field of research receives comes from dogmatism of one sort or another, either religious dogmatism or materialistic dogmatism.
This thing that you're saying is very curious, isn't it? Because in a way, it's almost, I'm not going to check because I think it's irrational. On the other hand, you could read, maybe if I come to and see the evidence, I'll start accepting it, isn't it? Because in a way, as respected as they are very blocked into, if anything doesn't fit within their little box, they will not accept. So as a scientist, in my opinion anyway, it's not very relevant, but I find that as a scientist, they are failing, because a scientist by nature should be someone who first and foremost is curious to find out more, to open up more, isn't it? Than rather just denying it. So as a scientist, they say, oh, if it doesn't fit in my little box, because the really, someone like Professor Green, I went to see one of his talks at the Royal Institution, and he talks about the string theories. It's completely theoretical, isn't it? As Higgs was completely theoretical just a few years ago. And of course, in the 60s when he started it, and now scientifically it's being proven. So science all the time is going forward, and the scientists, so important in their own mind somehow, they are being left behind by science itself. So I find that if they don't have the curiosity for it, it's, they're failing as a scientist. And also I think this, in many ways, the study that you've done is very much in the general mind of the public. Here in England, there is a program called the Paranormal. And because nowadays, everywhere, there are cameras being filmed. You see offices with people by them. There was a program on the telly some time ago. This girl, and you can see she's working late in her office. And she's sitting there on the computer, and you see literally as if someone takes hold of her chair and throws her to the other side of the room. And she's there by herself, and you see things falling down. These all being filmed all the time, and they have these programs on the telly, and people are actually watching it. So there must be something beyond that is causing all these things, and it's very much in the psyche now. in the general public, they begin slowly to accept, maybe not, oh, life after that or anything. But this, I think, is the beginning of the change, because they are seeing it in their own homes. Chairs
Yes,
about, I find.
exactly. So it's the beginning of a change, and it is a cultural change. Now, it is not enough to offer evidence if people will deny that the evidence is possible and won't read the book, for example, or won't read other books on that. And Charles observed also very well that we have a, a prohibition, or we have an obstacle for checking the evidence. And this obstacle is cultural, because most scientists nowadays have zero philosophical education. And because of that, most scientists believe that science is materialistic, but materialism is not, and will be never be science, because materialism and spiritualism are not scientific theories. They are philosophical interpretations about nature. They have nothing to do with evidence at all. There will be never spiritualistic science or materialistic science, because spiritualism and materialism are philosophical interpretations. So they are pure philosophy. But most scientists nowadays do not grasp that very clearly, and presuppose that materialism is a sort of presupposition of science, or a byproduct of scientific investigation.
I think I can do my question.
Yes, of course you can.
Because I'm thinking now in the book, the public that will be the readers, and I'm interesting to know how the general reception of the book has been so far.
Very positive, Elsa. People are very interested, and I wouldn't say that pretty much anyone so far was for or against what we said or what we concluded in the book, but most people so far showed a great interest in a scientific view, in a more scientific view of the subject. And they are excited to see other books and more books about the subject, because they do exist. We have many people working on that, but many are still, to some extent, a bit timid, and they do not want to embrace the full conclusions that the evidence suggests, or they are more historically oriented. Now they say what people in the SPR did, or what people 50 years ago, or back in the 19th century did, and so and so. Now this research is very developed. The history of survival research, the history of psychic studies, of spiritualism, modern spiritualism, spiritism, all of that is very developed now. We have dozens and dozens of good books in recent decades. Now, what is not very developed is the philosophical treatment of the evidence, and the specific analysis of what this evidence is telling us, what we can conclude from the evidence. I think this is something that has to be addressed more frequently, and by as many people as possible, independently from the fact that the researchers or the authors of future works are for or against, or they think or they interpret the evidence as positive or negative for the survival of the soul. So we basically need a serious scientific and serious philosophical discussion about that. And presently, we do not have.
Thank you. So the entire public can read and understand. It's up to people to go there and the Kindle and get the book. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm sharing the page on Amazon here for you all.
There's a
And
link of Amazon as well.
yeah, I'm putting the link. Okay. It's the link is on our comment box if you need, guys. So and here is the.
You can have in the book as well.
Excuse me. Yeah. So. Yes. So. Well, it's important to read. It's important. Clearly, we can see that spiritualism is getting away from a hypothetical something, and we are, thank God, to excellent jobs. We have innumerable people doing excellent job, as like you, Humberto, like Alexandre Moreira. So giving to us some kind of evidence, allowing us using our free will and decide which path we need to go. So thank you very much for your book. Thank you very much for your efforts, for joining us tonight. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to go through our announcements. Unless you, my friends, have any comments, anything to add?
Okay.
No, I only have to thank you for being interested, for showing the essential intellectual curiosity about such a work. And I can only hope that the general public have a similar intellectual curiosity and is open to discuss the evidence and the subject in general with an open mind.
I think it was very good. Thank you for that. And I think science as a whole, history, archaeology, everything, they coming in for a big shock because now science is developing to such a level that, now you can see cities under the earth that you didn't know existed. There are so many things going on because science is developed enough so we can study. So this little group of people who are completely enclosed in their little box, they will become irrelevant because the new people will just accept the ideas and they will research more because science is showing them what to do, and what the reality is. So I think that, and even in the studies of the Bible, who now people are doing really deep studies on many things in the Bible, finding codes that are there. So everyone, religion and science, are going in for a big shock, big changes, and it's so wonderful that like a book like yours is the opening up the path for this thing. So thank you very much for that.
People can visit as well the opensciences.org. Opensciences.org is a website, post-materialistic. Charles mentioned before. Very wonderful as well.
Okay. So for next week, we also have a special guest, Geraldo Lemos, and the topic, Chico Xavier, the medium of all centuries. So it's gonna be amazing show, amazing talk. Geraldo is wonderful, and be ready, my friends, to explore him as much as you can. So thank you. Um,
And
this is
Stevan,
the book.
it's
Yeah,
complementing today's, because Chico Xavier is one of the strong evidences.
Yes.
exactly. Exactly. So also we have this book, Chico Xavier, Media of the Saint, written by Guy Playfair, which is English author. Don't Elsa, it's an English author.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful big book. Already had already read it. So also, and we do have this available in Kindle version as well. So, and our shows, our regular shows, every Wednesday we have our friend Munir with Coffee Break with Kardec. 1 second.
Bless you.
Sorry, I have to
Bless
sneeze.
you.
And also have our every other week study of the book No Solar, and every Saturday 10:30 the course about the Mediums book. And uh, tough times for everyone, especially for our friends who are in a difficult situation without family and without shelter. And I would ask you, if you want to donate something, go to this program run by Kardec Group. It's just go to www.kardec.org.uk/high five, and your contribution will help two entities in Brazil. One is Grupo Sheila, and the other one Instituto Mutirão in Brazil. Okay, so this is it. I want to say thank you all. I'll be on holidays for the next two Wednesdays, and I'll be from the other side of the room here, just watching you guys. I'll be in a
Stevan, please. Close, Stevan.
He's froze.
Enjoy it, Stevan.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you very much. See you next week. God bless you all.
All the best. Au revoir.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
Bye.